Hello, everyone. Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Mike Ventura. Certainly my pleasure to have you with us today. So on today's program, we're talking about the 16 essential elements for plant health care. And so we're going to talk about the macronutrients, which are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. We're also going to be talking about some of the micronutrients, such as zinc, iron, manganese, magnesium, and the role some of these nutrients they play in the plant material. Also, we're talking about how to keep the nutrients unlocked and available to the root hairs of the plant via the soil. Because as I said, how we manage our soil is one of the big keys to being successful in the garden. All right, so let's talk about some of the macronutrients. Nitrogen. Nitrogen is a nutrient or element that stimulates green growth. It stimulates leaf production. It makes the plant get really green. It does not impact the root system. All right, so if you go out there and you put a lot of nitrogen down in your soil and you keep adding nitrogen, it's not going to help the root system to develop. It's going to get the leaf to grow really quick, and it's going to get really, really green. But if let's say you're growing roses and you keep adding nitrogen to the rose bush, all you're going to be getting is a green bush. You want to try to produce flower production. So again, nitrogen, you can apply nitrogen in forms of inorganic nitrogen, which is synthetic, or you can apply it in organic form, such as like cottonseed meal or blood meal. And so if you're going crop production, let's say you're growing a vegetable garden in your backyard, you want to go down the road, or at least I suggest you go down the road of using organics. Organics work just great. What you want to remember when you're going to use organics is they take a little bit longer to break down into the soil as compared to an inorganic or a synthetic. So just be careful how you apply your nitrogen. Another micronutrient is phosphorus. Phosphorus is essential for root hair production, flower production, and seed head production. And phosphorus also can be purchased in the name of bone meal. When you go to your garden center, bone meal is phosphorus. So a great way to determine what you actually have in your soil structure is get a soil analysis done. Go on out to find a plant soil lab, have them do a soil analysis, and that will tell you'll then know what percentage of your soil has the soil particles, sand, silt, and clay. You'll also know how much nitrogen you have in your soil, your phosphorus, your potassium, and the other 13 essential micronutrients. This is why that soil analysis is so important. Now, another macronutrient is called potassium. Potassium is essential because what it does is it prepares the plant to harden off during cool weather and when it gets cold out. Also, when there's the presence of disease, potassium hardens up the plant and it makes it stronger to handle disease incidents that might be in the garden. Then you have your micronutrients, such as we'll talk about a couple of them, which are common: zinc and iron and magnesium. And these nutrients are always in the soil, or predominantly in the soil. But if a soil starts getting a little more in the alkaline range, we'll talk about that in a minute, these nutrients, they may be available, they may be in the soil, but unavailable because the soil pH is going up. Now, I mentioned soil pH, and what exactly is soil pH? Soil pH refers to the potential hydrogen that we have inside of our soil. What does that mean as far as nutrients inside of our soil? That means that you want a soil that has a pH between about 6.5 to 7.0. And I'll tell you how you can determine that. The more alkali your soil gets, above 7.0, you might have the nutrients inside your soil. And I'm talking about micronutrients and macronutrients. They might be in the soil, but because the soil pH is going up, what happens is some of these nutrients are becoming unavailable to the root via the soil. So you want to try to keep your soil pH down around the 6.5 range and 7.0. How do I determine what my soil pH is? You can go to your local garden center or go online and get a soil pH meter. And all you do is you push it into the soil and it will tell you what your soil pH is. That is considered a bit of a baseline for your soil. So you know where you're working with as far as what the pH is. Then from there, you want to go ahead and start introducing organic compounds and soil amends that will take the soil and start getting that soil pH to come back down into the range which will allow the nutrients, the 16 essential nutrients, the 3 macronutrients and micronutrients to become available to the plant. Very, very important. Some of the micronutrients, such as zinc and iron. These are very, very important micronutrients that the plant needs. What does zinc do? It gets the foliage green. It makes it look really, really green. And on some plants, if there's a lack of it, the plant will actually indicate to you when there's a lack of zinc. Iron is another micronutrient that's very common in the landscape and it's inside of our soil. But in order for zinc and iron to become available to the plant via the soil, you have to have best to have a soil that is in the acidic range. Zinc and iron tend to become unavailable as the soil pH starts to go up over 7.0, 7.2, 7.5. Now what's happening is the soil is becoming more compacted, a lack of oxygen, and consequently zinc and iron tend to become unavailable. So what I suggest you do is before you get into the growing season, go on out and get a soil analysis done. Find out what you have as far as I mentioned in the previous presentation. If your clay, soil, silt, or sand, you want to find out what your existing soil pH is. And then at least you now know what your baseline is for your soil. And then you can start amending the soil and get that done before you put your landscape in, what you've been planting, because you'll find out plant material tends to respond much better when you have good drainage, available oxygen, and consequently the nutrients that the plant needs tend to be more available to the plant in a soil that is fertile and it's got good, at least 20% of organic matter. Okay, so with that, enjoy the program and good luck with the garden.